Welcome to the Beyond Divorce, Embracing Change podcast. My name is Michael Flores, and I will be your host while we explore the complex journey of divorce with empathy, insight, and practical knowledge. Whether you're contemplating separation, in a divorce, or looking for support post-divorce, our episodes provide expert guidance, stories, and strategies to help you through every step of the process. We are actual therapists, helping clients who sit on our couches every day through their difficulties of divorce. You are not alone. Join us as we delve in and find solutions that give you hope again. We're glad you're here.
This podcast is not intended to replace legal or personal help. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Well, welcome everyone to Beyond Divorce, Embracing Change podcast. We're back once again with Miss Jen. Jen's going to interview me this time.
Yes, I am.
On this particular topic. We want to really talk about the reunification process. It's very common that people get court ordered to do reunification therapy. So a parent will go into court, say, my relationship with my kid is not where it used to be or where it should be, for whatever reasons. And then there potentially is an order that comes out, either an agreement by the parents or a court order from the judge about doing therapy with the child to kind of see if they can help facilitate a relationship with that particular parent. Jen, let me ask you, do you suppose that reunification sometimes also includes the other parent that's non-reunifying?
Oh, yeah, totally.
So there's a piece to that, isn't there?
There is. And because reunification usually, I think it happens more often when there's been a time period where the kid hasn't been around a parent.
Right.
Or both parents for sometimes.
Right.
They've been living with grandparents. So there's a gap in their relationship. And so it's kind of it's kind of there to help rebuild that piece that's been missing for a little bit, depending on the time frame and stuff. I mean, there's so many different variations of reunification, so it's really hard to explain all of it. But the purpose is really to help reunify the relationship and build it back up to where it should be.
Correct. And I think when we go through some of the steps of reunification, I can talk about in the maintenance stage about how the other parent or the non-reunifying party still plays a role in the process.
They do.
I think they play a major role. And I've actually had parents who are reunifying talk about having the non-reunifying parent actually be as a participant, which really, that's family therapy. You're asking for full family therapy at that point.
And it really, when you get to that point and that actually is included, it's so helpful because the kid then is realizing, oh, I get to have both my parents again. And they're so excited about it. So it makes a world of difference sometimes when you're looking at...
Yeah, because the kid didn't get divorced, right?
Yeah, they just are part of this.
They're still part of the system. Yeah. Where the divorce happens, they're still part, right?
Yeah.
So.
And you have a long history of working with reunifying parents with their kids in different ways.
I have kids now that are adults. Literally, I've been doing it that long that they started as kids that could, their feet were barely touching the carpet, or the rug in the office. And I've had some kids that I've talked to as adults that remember the old office, remember when kind of we first began. So, seeing them, getting to talk to them as adults is really cool. Yeah. To see how they've progressed themselves and to see that they valued the therapeutic intervention because they still see it as a benefit to them, even just talking about their transitioning into their adult lives. And so, I've had a really unique opportunity to do that. So
it's really cool. And I've learned a lot from you because of that.
Oh, well, thanks.
All your history with what you have done. It's been really interesting to see the different dynamics within families and how they all play out, especially when you're trying to reunify a piece of it.
100%. And people forget that part of the reunification process is there is a history.
Mm-hmm.
So that history could be good or bad, but it plays a part of the process of reconciliation in a relationship. So why don't we kind of jump into, if it's okay, why I think this is important. The reason I think this is important and to bring it to all of you is if you can kind of pick up on some of the patterns that I've learned and things that I've learned along the reunification process, parents are able to come more prepared to reunify with their kids and understand a way to embrace the challenges that may come to them. We used to Armando and I actually had a conversation with a client not that long ago. And we said, when you decide that you're going to embrace the opposition, it no longer feels oppositional. And it's the idea that a lot of times in reunification, we parents are frustrated with the opposition sometimes the kids pose.
Yeah.
And they're so set on pointing where it's coming from. This is why it's here.
Yeah. You're the reason this is happening.
Yes. And they get so dead set on that they forget that there's a procedural process that if they learn how to do that, it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing if they think someone else is doing something because they have a way to respond to it.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And so it's really cool to watch parents transition from this is where the problem is and put their finger on it to how do I heal? How do I preserve? How do I build?
Mm-hmm. How often do you see, because I know I've seen this a few times too, where you have the non-reunifying parent, automatically the reunifying parent is blaming that other parent saying, you kept this kid from me, when really that may not have been the case.
It's much easier to blame
yeah.
than to take ownership.
Yeah.
And I think that telling me, the professional, that the non-reunifying parent has created something is okay. When you're in the reunification session with the child, it needs to be all about the kid, not trying to convince the kid. In my opinion, I'm not going to convince you what's happening to you.
Yeah.
Because then what I'm doing is, without realizing it, I'm robbing you and telling you you're not smart enough to see what's happening to you. Because a lot of the kids that I've worked with that have done reunification, the ones that have aged out and become adults, they come back and they know exactly what those parents were doing.
They figure it out.
They do, but they have to survive the system when they're in it. But once they step out as adults and they look backwards,
oh yeah,
they figure it out. So don't dumb them down. You don't have to convince them of what's happening to them. What you say is, where can I help?
Yeah.
Right? Make it about you and them. The reunification should be centered on this relationship.
Exactly.
And nothing else in that counseling room matters at this time, even if something's happening outside. Let that be between the adult and the clinician, not the child. Let the child be all about you, the parent.
Yeah.
So I hope that makes sense for the listeners, because it's so important to remember that. And we'll go through, I'm going to go through some stages. Yeah.
You said, I think you said there's some steps to how this process kind of works.
Yeah, there's patterns I've found with the reunification sessions that I've had with people where they've made tons of progress. And I've had really quick progress. I've had slow progress, but I've seen progress every time these factors are in it.
Okay.
So think of it this way. Think of this like the seeds of reunification. It's probably the best way to describe it. Yeah, these are the seeds.
Seeds that can grow.
So we used to say, they're planting seeds, they're planting seeds. So to plant the right types of seeds to reconcile a relationship, these are the things you have to remember.
I like the way you put that. It makes, because you have the opposite of the other parents saying they're poisoning them with these seeds. So
yeah,
using it in a different way to make it understand there's things that you can put in place and look for that will be beneficial.
So Dr. Robinson's going to like this if he's listening to this podcast. Yeah. He's going to like this.
He loves the seeds.
Well, he likes the idea. He's going to like this reference.
Yeah.
There is a biblical place where it talks about sowing good seed. And it says that when you sow the good seed, and then the thief in the night comes in and sows bad seed or comes in and whatever, the weeds are growing around it. Now, if the farmer comes in and pulls out all of it at one time, he also risks pulling out the good seed.
Yes.
So you have to let them grow side by side.
To figure out which one's which.
Correct. And then when harvest time comes, which is your child's adult life.
Yes, they know
they're
which
going to
one,
grow up.
The good and the bad.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Then there's a harvest time where the two are then separated. And it talks about like the angels will come and separate the good from the bad and everything else. And so it's about really just focusing in on where can I plant the best seeds for my children.
So what are these seeds?
Oh, gosh, I knew. Give them to me. Well, let's give you the 5. There's 5 things that I've seen as a pattern. Acknowledge, validate, apologize, collaborate, and I call this Temp Check. Okay. So do you want me to just do an order?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you mean acknowledge? What are we acknowledging?
Well, you have to acknowledge 2 places.
Okay.
That everyone has a narrative, right? And everyone has an experience, and it may not match.
Correct.
Right? So the way they tell the story, right? If I ask the child or children or the parents, how did we get here? I'm going to get different stories.
Oh yeah, you're going to get 3 different
Correct.
answers.
I might get some scenarios that sound similar, right? That were catalysts that led to a divorce, but the story of how did we get here is going to be different because there's emotion built into it. There's perception built into it. There's
Mm-hmm.
beliefs that are built into it. There may be old hurts that are built into it. There could be trauma there. And so I know that that's what's going to happen. So acknowledge is really to say, I have a version and you have a version.
Yes.
And so I'm acknowledging that we're here.
And acknowledging isn't necessarily accepting.
No. So
It's
why don't
just
you explain
acknowledging. Well, acknowledging is just identifying that, yes, I understand you have a version and I have a version. And we start from there. Then we figure out how do we use those two versions to come up with the solution.
This is the best way of help me understand. You can ask the child,
Yeah.
hey, I noticed that you and I aren't close. You can use the 5 sense language. It feels like you and I aren't close or as close as we used to be.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how we got here? That's literally an acknowledgement that there's a story there. There's a version that I need to understand. That's all you're doing.
Yes.
That's acknowledgement. That's the first thing. So I would say, and you can do them in this order. I would acknowledge first.
I think acknowledging first is always a good
100%.
idea. Because then at least you have an even playing field to start from.
100. Yep. And I'm taking an interest in you.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I would encourage a parent to do first. Let's go to the second one. The second one's validate. This is where, when you listen to the narrative of the child and they tell you what they felt, what they've experienced, you validate going, oh my goodness, I did not know.
Yeah.
Right? Or I can only imagine how hard that was for you. Right? That's the parts you agree with, because you may not agree with every part of the story. But I'm not going to tell them where I disagree. That's not my chance to argue. I'm looking for where I agree.
Yeah.
So in my validation is, you're going to tell me a story this big.
Yeah.
And if I agree with none of it, I'm going to say, what else? And I'm going to keep letting you build until I've emptied you out. And then I'm going to find where I agree with you. Now, you may say nothing I agree with in the story, but you might say something like, and that's why we're not close. And I might just agree, we're not close.
Yeah.
And I'll go, I get that same feeling. We're not close. And I can understand that. And so what you're saying to them in that validation is, I agree with that sentiment of we're not close, even if that's just the only thing you agree on.
True. Because I think what I find is, I think parents do want to validate what their kids are saying.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've experienced sometimes is they will say, oh, okay, I understand what you're saying, but, and they have another part to it.
Yes.
It moves into another section of things versus just allowing that validation to stand by itself.
So there's a guy named Vinny, and I don't remember his full name. I got to find him, but so I didn't come up with this. He says to replace the word but with and.
Yeah.
When you say, I hear you, but you've just negated everything
exactly
previous to it. But if
the
you
kids,
said...
And all the kids hear is like, you don't hear me.
And if you say, I hear everything you're saying, and...
Yeah.
You're adding.
Yes.
You can use that everywhere you have a conversation with someone, right? Get rid of but and say and. So instead of saying yes, but, say yes, and. Right? So if someone, okay, I'll give you a fun one.
Okay.
This is a fun scenario. Michael, you are really expensive to see as a therapist, and you don't take insurance. And I can say, yeah, but I've been doing this a long time. I've been blah, blah, blah. And
then you're defending yourself.
There's no need to defend it. But if I say yes, and we're some of the best that do this. Mm-hmm. We've done this a long time. We've dedicated a life of serving families in this way.
Yeah.
See the yes and?
Yes, it makes a little bit of a difference
It's a micro shift.
Well, and I think it's really important for parents to understand that, because one of the things I see a lot of kids, and one of the things they say the most is, I'm not heard. They don't listen to me. They don't hear what I say. They don't listen to what I need.
Mm-hmm. The way that people invalidate is they'll hear the child say something that sounds like the other parent.
Oh, yeah.
And so what they'll do is they'll not take anything the child's saying. So what I tell parents is, when a child is saying something, even if it sounds like the other parent, it's coming out of their mouth. Yeah. Which means that they've either accepted it as truth, right? Or they're curious. How can you tell the difference? Does it end with a period or a question mark?
True.
So if they say, you abandoned us, period, they also believe that. They may have been told that, but they believe it, and it's coming out of their mouth. To validate, you go, oh my goodness, my intention was never to abandon. How did we get there?
Yeah.
What led you to believe that that's what happened? See, that's that curious idea. That's the validation. It brings in the I'm
curiosity.
Acknowledging it. Now I'm going to validate. Oh my God, right? Yeah. That's not what I wanted. That's the first 2 steps.
Yeah. What's the third step?
Well, I want to get there.
Oh, we're not there yet.
Yeah, well, I'm almost there. When we tell children, right, this sounds like your mom, this sounds like your dad,
Yeah.
we are taking away all that voice that you wish they had.
Yeah.
Every parent has always said, I want my kid to have a voice.
Yeah.
But I've noticed most parents say that when they're in alignment with the voice that they have.
True.
When the parent is not in alignment with the voice that they have, they don't really tell me all the time that they wish the kid had a voice.
That's true.
It's learning to listen to the voice that's being presented and understanding that you might be right. This could be a huge influence. This child's voice could have been developed by influence.
But it also could have been their thought.
However, when you treat their voice as if it's powerful, such as when it comes out of your mouth, you own your words, whether you were told those things or not. That child now starts to really think about how they use those words.
It's true.
They really do. They go back and question, okay, you're telling me this, but that may not be true. I don't know if I want to say this to my other parent. Because my other parent will hold me accountable to my words.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, right? That's an important thing. So acknowledging and validating.
And you just made me think of something in that process, because when you have when you do have a kid coming in and saying something like, oh, well, this sounds like your dad, and it's coming from your dad, you're acknowledging it, you're validating it. But at the same time, oh my God, my brain just stopped. There was a point in there that it can...
There's a level of invalidation, maybe? I don't know.
Oh.
It's okay if it comes back to you.
It went out of my head. Oh my gosh.
Well, you're acknowledging...
I literally had a specific example I was thinking of.
Well, it's fine. You said you're acknowledging and validating when you say this is your dad's voice or this is your mom's voice.
Yes. And the kid hears... but the kid's like, I'm saying this.
Exactly.
They don't understand that they're the ones saying it.
Correct.
And if it's a problem, it's something I had to deal with a case that I was reunifying a family. And what I ended up doing is I brought in the non-reunifying parent with the reunifying parent and said, look, this is where we're at. This is what we're looking at. This is what your kid is saying to both of them.
Wow.
I said what the kid is saying, and they looked at each other. I said, it's not coming from him. It's not coming from her. She said it.
That's right.
So
you gave the kid the words.
I gave the kid the words, and I let the parents know, regardless of where they think it came from, it's coming from her.
Once it comes out of their mouth, they own the words.
Exactly.
And so you listen for a period, which means they've already assumed it to be true. So get more information. How do we get to that? If it comes with a question mark, which is, did you just leave us? Did you just abandon us? Question? Then you go, no, you can answer that. No, I didn't do that. Do you feel like I did that?
Yeah.
Right? Now I'm wanting to understand you.
Well, and I like that question. Do you feel like I did that versus did someone tell you I did that?
Exactly. Because why does that sound different to a child when I say, do you feel like I did that?
Because it's more about what they feel versus accusing someone else.
You're making it about the child, the forgotten one in the divorce.
Yes.
You're no longer forgotten. I see you. So acknowledge, validate.
Yes.
This is the one that I know you've personally have experienced watching a parent do or parents do before.
Yeah.
Apologizing.
Oh, yeah.
What difference does it make for children when a parent takes responsibility for their action?
It's amazing because 9 times out of 10, that's what the kids want, especially when there's been some kind of trauma or some kind of incident that happened that occurred in the family that may have caused the change. When they hear from that parent, I'm sorry, that's not what I intended.
Right.
Or, I'm sorry, I miss you, I love you. You're right. It helps to validate. I mean, it goes back to validating the kid. They're like, I'm not crazy. They are taking responsibility for what they did.
When you said you're right, I had a little reaction because I've noticed that parents will almost never say you're right.
Oh, yeah. It's hard.
If the kid says something accurate, to say, I'm in agreement with that. Or, you know what? That sounds right to me. Like, that level of linking yourself in alignment, right, is super important. But the humility of saying something like, I want to apologize for, right? And I think that I've seen a parent go one step further. I need you to know that I'm sorry that this happened, and I need you to also know it's not your fault.
Oh, yeah. That's always nice to hear.
Yeah, this is not your fault. I'm going to take this one.
Yeah. And I have had parents who literally have told their kid, you know what, this is between us.
I had a kid in a case, well, I'll just say a scenario.
Yeah.
Where it was parentifying, not alienating, because people misuse it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And in a parentified case, the child was the mom's, in this case, it was the mom, was mom's little protector. So it was a son protecting the mother's emotional stance, right? Mom was having a hard time with the divorce. Mom was sad all the time. She was crying. I think she was in the closet and bringing her food. And
Oh,
just really difficult things. Like the kid was really taking on this parental role.
correct.
So dad knows this is happening, right? And dad's mad that mom is
Allowing it to happen.
well, right. Like, Mom, you're such in a bad place, won't do anything about it.
Yeah.
You're making me the villain, right? You're the victim, I'm the villain, right? And so the child now is mad at me, and it's hurting our relationship because you're in a bad place and hurting. The natural tendency of the parent is to be mad at the other parent. Well, this parent, smart parent, what they did is they told the kid, I am so sorry that you feel that you're tasked with that.
Yeah.
Because in reality, that's my role. That was my role as your mom's husband, is to help manage and help my wife, and I'm no longer there to do that. And it sounds like you're now having to do that.
Yeah.
And that, just acknowledging that,
Yeah.
that child went, you see me,
Yeah.
right? And the validation of, well, actually the skip went right into the apology, and he said, I am so sorry that you're carrying the weight of that. And then he did this really interesting thing where he said, how can I help?
Wow.
And the kid said, we don't have any money.
Oh, my gosh.
So he turned into that. And Dad looks over at me, and I said, I think we need to get Mom in here for this part.
Yeah.
And I looked at the kid, and I said, thank you for your honesty, for your courage to talk. And I said, Dad, thank you for making it about your child.
Yeah.
Right. And I looked at the kiddo and I said, I'm wondering if it's time for Mom and Dad to talk about this now.
Yeah.
And this kid just looked at me like all the weight just came off of him.
Yeah. Just let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And he was doing this, a version of this. And it was just to watch it happen. It was beautiful. So you've experienced that apology.
I have.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to see, and it's really great to hear. I sometimes wish the other parent was in the room when that happens. When you're reunifying, it's usually just with one parent and the kid. And I kind of wish the other parent had heard it too. But at least the kid can tell the other parent, this is what
difference
they said.
do you suppose it would make when the parent, the non-reunifying parent, was able to hear that? What difference do you think that makes?
Well, it depends.
It's okay. Go ahead.
It depends.
Go ahead.
I think there's two reasons why it would work well in the relationship. One, whether they are apologizing to both of them of the situation, or
like to mom and child, or dad and child.
Exactly. Okay. Or just to the kid.
Right.
Seeing the kid relax can help the other parent. Hopefully.
Yes, because typically the non-reunifying parent wants to approach the dynamic of, I want to protect the kids.
Oh, yeah. Their whole issue is 9 times out of 10, safety. I want them safe. I want them secure. I want them to feel comfortable in this, knowing they're going into an uncomfortable situation.
So now I have a question. Where do kids actually get that comfort and security from?
The non-reunifying parent.
So when the non-reunifying parent is afraid that their child is not secure and comforted, the child actually feels not secure and comforted because the parent that is secure and comforting doesn't feel secure.
Exactly. So their fear is rubbing off on their kids.
Correct, because that parent's level of angst is now going down to the child. The child then feels that and has to preserve that parent.
Yeah.
Right, to not take on the angst, and they can't.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why I think hearing the apology would be helpful in some of those situations is because it also relieves some of their fear. It relieves that anxiety that the other parent feels, knowing, okay, we're going to get somewhere with this.
And the non-refined parent typically will come at it from a skeptical place, and a cynical place, and feel the apology as a counterfeit, right?
Sure.
And the task of a non-reunifying parent is really to get out of the way.
Yeah.
It's almost as if like, well, what if things don't go well, Michael? Like if I get that, well, things aren't going to go well. That's why you're in therapy. And in the event things don't go well, the lifeguard's on duty.
Yeah.
Which means the therapist is here because one day we will go away.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, let us do the work, let it happen. If it's a counterfeit, yes, we're all going to figure that out.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The child is too. And who's that really going to hurt? The non-reunifying parent or the reunifying parent?
The reunifying parent. Because
yeah.
if they're not really truthful in how they're apologizing and really understanding what they're talking about,
yes,
it's going to become to light. somewhere.
And the child's going to come to that conclusion themselves without any influence at all. So that whole thing of influence is gone now.
Yeah.
Let them apologize. Let's move on, right? Non-refined parents' job, get out of the way.
Yeah.
Gosh, that sounds hard though, isn't it?
It does sound hard.
No, it is hard.
It is very hard, but it is also, when you're looking at it from the viewpoint of your child and what your child is experiencing, yes, they're going to be stressed. They're going to be anxious. They're going to be worried about it 9 times out of 10. So helping them be okay with that and understand that it's only temporary. We can work through those little issues.
We're here to work.
Yeah.
Counseling is
Is
work.
that kind of where collaborate comes in?
Well, collaborating is exactly that. Collaboration is you start to begin to build a new normal with the kid.
Yeah.
Which is where you've done the acknowledgement, you've done the validating, you've apologized. Now you're in a position where you start to collaborate with the child in a line.
Yeah.
Hey, going forward, I want to do things a little different. Yeah. How do you hope that could look? What could that look like? This is where our model works so well.
It does.
What would you like that to look like? How would we know if we're making progress, right? If we came across this same issue again in the future, how would you like to do that differently? What would you like me to do? What are you willing to do, right? Or what are you against doing or opposed to? And so the next thing you know, you're developing a new way.
Yeah.
The collaboration is developing and aligning on a new way to approach problems in the future.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That's what collaborate means, right? Makes sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move to the last one.
Yes. Temp check.
Temp checking. I will always tell the reunifying parent, when you guys are in the maintenance stage, you temp check. And I like temp checking with scales.
Yeah. Scales work really great.
They're great with kids.
They are.
So if I say, hey, well, we're doing great, things are moving in the right direction, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best, 1 being least, where would you say we are right now, relationally? And they may say 8.
Yeah.
Great. Does that need to be higher? Or are we in a good spot at 8? We're great at 8. Okay. What number would be the lowest it could go? We're still good before it gets to a place we're not good. Kid may say 6.
That's
right? So you say, hey, as long as we're 6 and above, we're in a good place.
Yeah.
So if you hear 8, awesome. How did we get there? What did we do? Therapists like to do that, right? Yeah. So they can maintain stuff. Once it gets less than 6, what did I miss?
What changed? Yeah.
Yeah. What's changed? What did I miss?
Yeah.
Right. We're at a 5 now. We're at a 4. What did I miss? I missed something, right? Yeah. We moved down. Temp checking is just that simple.
Yeah.
And that's my version of it. But you can even just ask, how you doing? How are we doing? Just to keep it on the simple surface level. But temp checking and maintenance is extremely important. And maintenance, here's the key to maintenance.
Yeah. Maintenance is important. Always.
Maintenance is all centered around consistency and predictability, which is what Armando talks about, makes a kid feel ultimately safe.
Oh, always.
So if you're consistent and predictable and you get into the maintenance stage of the reunification process, that's going to be your bank.
Yeah.
Consistency and predictability.
Totally. Yeah. And unfortunately, as humans, we're not always the most consistent people. But, we all have to keep working at that.
Sure.
But it is very key. I mean, regardless of divorce or anything, working with kids, consistency is key. That's why school is school.
That's
right. It is set up in a way that is supposed to be, it's regimented, whatever. But it's done that for a reason. Having a schedule, having a process helps them move along through the day.
100%.
I actually have, it's interesting because I have a kid that I just started working with that is out of school, out of high school, hasn't gone to college, and struggling because she has nothing to do. And so she's going to create a schedule for herself and kind of build some more hobbies into her life right now because she needs something to focus on.
Routine. Yeah, we need something. We need a goal and a routine around it.
Well,
That's right.
With parents, especially when you're dealing with reunifying and you starting to have more visitation and things are changing, but maintaining that balance of consistency, this is how it's going to be.
Maintenance is around building
habits.
habits.
This would probably be for another, another topic. But how do you deal with a non-consistent parent?
Oh.
But we can talk about that later.
Okay. Well, remember, you as the reunifying parent really need to build in maintenance really the habits around dealing with that because we succumb to the habits that we've created. I didn't say that. That actually came from someone. Can't even think of the name of that person right now, but he wrote it.
So many people.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People or something like that. But it's all about
that guy.
Yeah. I think it's just like habits are so important. Yes, habits are so important. Okay, so a couple of takeaways. Let's go through these again. Acknowledge, validate, apologize, collaborate, temp check.
Yeah.
It's 5 things. If you do them in those orders, they typically work. Like a lot of people don't realize, could you do them out of order? Probably.
Oh, yeah.
There's
I'm
times
sure
I've had it. However, I would say that if you're going to ask me directly, like, how do I go from A to Z? It's 5 steps, and I'd start here, right? Start with 1 to 5. And the other takeaway that we said earlier I think is really important is yes and.
Yeah.
When you hear something that doesn't match, you can just say, I'm not quite in agreement with that.
Mm-hmm.
I hear what you're saying, and I want you to consider blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right? But you say, yeah, but you're negating everything they said. You take away their whole words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes and, not yes but.
Well, I think the yes, but also you get into a defensive mode.
100%.
And when you get defensive, then the other person gets defensive, and then it doesn't work.
Well, you've made everything I say not matter at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but.
Yeah.
Yes, and. It's a collaborative.
It's a tricky situation, but it definitely is something to be learned.
Words matter.
They do.
Is it that simple? Here's the unique thing, and I know we're going to end.
Yeah.
The unique thing about human beings is we have the ability to communicate.
Oh, yeah.
The problem with human beings, no one teaches you how to do it.
No, they don't. You have to figure it out.
We're so unique.
And every person is different. So their words that they use may be different, but you're talking the same language.
Correct. We develop beliefs over things we're told, things we experience, things we're told about what we've experienced.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that wars have started because of words, but peace also happens because of words.
Sure.
So the same thing that creates war can create peace. And so I would highly, highly encourage everyone to learn how to communicate, learn how words matter. There is power in words. Maya Angelou said that she believed, she passed, but she believed that one day we would be able to measure the power of words.
Yeah.
Because she believed that words get into everything. Into your walls. She said it used to get into your wallpaper. I don't know if it has that anymore. Some people still do wallpaper now. I've seen it. Yeah, we do. But words get into everything.
Yeah.
So your words are really important, okay? So if you say something and it's a miss, be curious, not defensive. That's a big key there, too.
Yeah.
So those are the takeaways. Thank you all for being here. Jen,
Yeah,
thank you for doing this with me.
Not a problem.
I kind of got on a soapbox there, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. It's okay.
That's okay. Thank you. Well, I want to thank all of you listeners. If you haven't subscribed to our podcast yet, please do that and we're on pretty much every
platform.
Every one that I can think of, right? And for those of you watching, we also appreciate that very much. And so we just want to let you know you can follow us on Instagram at Brighter Possibilities FC, and you can follow us on Facebook as well at Brighter Possibilities Family Counseling. We look forward to hearing from you guys next time. Please submit questions if you have them, and keep moving forward, everyone. So look here, everyone. We've created a free resource to help you understand the deeper dynamics that may be shaping your family's experience of divorce. It's called The Toxic Family Dynamics Unpacked: Understanding Triangulation, Parentification, and Alienation in High-Conflict Divorces. In this course, I break down 3 of the most common and damaging patterns we see families navigating divorce. You'll learn how to spot them, how they impact your kids, and what you can start doing to move toward healing and stability. People often assume that they're seeing is alienation, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it's triangulation or parentification at play. Understanding the difference matters because the path forward depends on it. If you're ready to change the story in your family, visit www.brighterpossibilitiesfc.com/classes or the link in the show notes below to access the course for free. We're here to walk with you on your journey.